retirement is not a destination. It's really a new phase of life.
I wanted to work on my terms and work with the gifts that I believe that I have.
In my early 30s, I came to the realization that I just could not spend the rest of my life sitting in front of a computer. We retired in our mid-30s with $870,000.
And live a little bit outside of Tucson, Arizona.
I'm an American expat retiree living off of about $185,000 in Dubai.
I live in Pensacola, Florida, and retired at 28 years old.
Some of the biggest misconceptions about retirement is that retirement is not a destination. It's really a new phase of life. Going from making minimum wage and trying to save as much as you can and counting every penny to now being able to spend whatever you want. It's been a journey. I'm Jamal Robinson. I'm an American expat retiree living off of about $185,000 in Dubai. I actually decided to retire at 17 years old. I was working at Taco Bell. Believe it or not, at that age, I was able to look around at the job market and I didn't see a lot of people that were happy with work. I learned that it's really important to make sure that you're working and you have your own relationship with work and you're not doing something that you don't want to do. So in my mind, I always thought that it made the most sense to compress that amount of time in my life. And I set the goal to retire early at 45, which I wound up hitting 6 years earlier than expected. As soon as I retired, I went out and I explored, and so far it's been about 9 countries and 15 cities, and I've been loving it. What I love most about Dubai is it really caters to people that have been retired and are looking for a lot of services and activities. I found that most often the things that were promised to me in America actually existed here. So the levels of safety, the levels of integration of people into society where everyone's accepted. Over the weekend for fun, I find myself going out and just exploring new areas. So I may go out to the creek and just walk around and look at the boats and meet people as I walk. To people's surprise, Dubai is actually much cheaper for me than living in most of the major American cities I've been in. Dubai allows you to live the kind of lifestyle that you want to live, and it allows for a lot of different price ranges. Every month, I pay myself about $15,400 for the month. And of that $15,400, I wind up spending about $9,000. Food, I definitely don't go cheap on. I typically allocate about $2,000 per month. I go out and eat a lot of times when I have friends or people that I can entertain. And then as far as home, I also cook quite a lot. December was a unique month for me because I'm on a kind of expat private insurance. I had to pay about $1,600 out of pocket for some medication. My doctor's visits were anywhere from $200 to $300 a piece. So it totaled up to be a lot higher. When it comes to getting around for transit in Dubai, I'm a little bit sad about this as I don't have a car. I use a service here where I get access to a driver, and the driver drives me all around the city. So I pay my $400 to $600 a month and use that for transportation. The place that I'm currently living in is 2 bedrooms, and it's roughly about 900 square feet. It's right off the beach and in a premium area for Dubai. And this place costs about $5,000 per month. How I live now is I'm actually spending a lot more than I typically would. My relationship growing up with money was definitely one of discipline. Without really consciously thinking through it, I chose to save a lot. Now, as I've been able to reflect a lot as an adult, I also see where I had a scarcity mindset and maybe not a healthy relationship with money in the sense of I wanted to hoard it. Luckily, I've been able to graduate to a place where I'm much more comfortable. I've been opening up the checkbook and spending more. Growing up, I didn't get much knowledge on money and investments and things that I'm focused on now. I think my parents, coming from lower middle and class homes, were more so focused on survival, as many people might be. My parents had worked pretty hard in their life, and I just saw the wear and tear that took on them. So I wanted to be careful to not be in a similar situation and have to work and just give all of my life source and energy to a job for the remainder of my life. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but those factors really contributed to me wanting to retire at an early age. Climbing up the corporate ladder was not easy, but I definitely aggressively climbed up the corporate ladder. I moved to Austin, Texas, worked at this amazing startup called InfoChimps, and made a lot of great connections there. And that accelerated me into tech, which later led to IBM, Amazon, Intel, Microsoft, and a few others. So I always kept my eyes open for new opportunities, also made sure that I was as valuable as possible. And I would say my salary went from about $40,000 to about $60,000 to about $64,000. And then that's when I had one of my bigger jumps. And then after that, I went to north of 1 million. So when I got the big jump, at most I may go out and get a meal. A lot of times I didn't even do that. I always remind people that in my head, I'm still the guy that's making a minimum wage working at Taco Bell. So when people see these large salaries or ask me, hey, how did it feel to make over $1 million a year? I often tell them, I don't know, it felt like making not quite minimum wage, but also not like making $1 million a year. I would make $1 million a year and I would struggle to spend over $50 on an item. There definitely was a certain amount of money that I wanted to hit when I retired. Over the years that has changed. It started off in the low 1.5 million, then it got up to 5 million, then 20 million. And at some point I realized that with what I need in life, I settled on my number, which is around 4 million. Some of the biggest misconceptions about retirement, or at the very least, things that people need to know, is that retirement is not a destination. It's really a new phase of life. I want to maximize my life experiences and not keep saving money for the future. Part of retiring was so I could explore my hobbies more. And the hobbies that I have are typically in the space of creativity. I DJ in my spare time. I've always had a love for music. So as I've gotten older and got more aware of technologies that exist, I've gotten more into producing music and just playing around with sounds. When it comes to choosing where I live, I have a matrix of about 14 things that qualify safety, the amount of singles that they have as I'm still single, the population, how diverse it is, the government, how stable it is, the currency, and a few other things. And Dubai hit pretty high on that list. What I love the most about Dubai is the cultural diversity. There's people from literally all over the world. So immediately I was able to come and feel at home. On top of that, it's very centrally located. So I can travel to the US or travel to the East and check out various like Southeast Asian countries along with Australia. And then at the same time, there's just a lot to do here. As an American expat that's also Black, I would say my experience has been very different than what I'm used to. In America, you're typically identified as a Black person first, and then after that, you're an engineer or a janitor or whatever they want to label you as. And I would say that as I've traveled around the world, as soon as I open my mouth and people hear the accent, I typically get categorized with the rest of Americans. So quite often I don't feel my Blackness. It's almost like you're celebrated and people will come up to you and they want to talk and engage with you. So I found that it's been, maybe for the first time in my life, a privilege to be a Black person, and it's been really beneficial. Overall, I find that I'm more happy and more at peace, and it's just much better here than where I was living before. I do plan to travel in the very near future. I'm going back to Amsterdam. I'm also going to Bangkok, Thailand. I was thinking about checking out South Africa, and for various reasons, I'm going to head back to the US for a little while. And as far as what's actually next, I would say I try not to think in the typical term of what's next, as long as I can retain those emotional states and make sure that I'm also doing so while adding value to the world. I'm okay with it.
My personal definition of retirement is financial freedom, not necessarily retirement from doing work that fulfills you and that you're passionate about. I wanted to work on my terms and work with the gifts that I believe that I have, and being able to expound on those gifts and try to provide value to others where best I can. My name is Nathanael Farrelly. I am 29 years old. I live in Pensacola, Florida, and retired at 28 years old. In March of 2020, I started my company, Revitalized Specialty Infusion, and we partnered with specialty pharmacies and hospital organizations to provide nurses to the patients' homes. Home infusion therapy is, instead of a patient going to a hospital or an infusion clinic or a doctor's office for their chronic infusion therapy, we can essentially send the nurse directly to the patient's home. We have several million in cash, and that is accruing at 4.75%. And whatever we don't use in that month, we either let that continue accruing interest, compounding interest, or reinvest in other avenues that may produce greater returns with the least amount of risk possible. Our biggest expense would be the property tax, the homeowner's insurance, and flood insurance that we have. In addition to that, our next biggest expense would be a private school tuition for our kids. I met my wife when she was 14. I was 15, and I knew she was the one. I remember taking her dad out to Applebee's in Westerly, Rhode Island, and seriously asking for a hand in marriage when she was only 16. And I was fully convinced that he would let us. And of course his answer was no, but I was dedicated to prove to him that I would be able to support his daughter. I was health conscious, and I had a passion for helping people. My end goal was to have my own practice as a family nurse practitioner. After 10th grade, instead of spending another 2 years to complete high school, I realized that I could shift that energy into studying for my GED, working towards my nursing degree at a community college in Rhode Island. My first job as a registered nurse was in the ICU step down, and I only had 1 week of training and orientation. I remember waking up every morning sick to my stomach, dreading to going to work every day. That start of not having the appropriate training, I believe it opened up a lot of anxiety and stress. I ran into a nurse that was actually doing infusion therapy. Wasn't really quite sure what that exactly was at that time, but I do remember her saying independent contractor, and me as an entrepreneur and having a brief understanding of that resonated really well with me. I realized that there was a huge need for nurses in this space. My goal and mission was really to replicate what I experienced going from a very stressful environment to now something that I look forward to seeing my patient. So I started the business with less than $1,000. It was just a couple weeks later, that's when COVID was announced. While I believe infusion therapy is certainly a growing industry, I do believe it was just being in the right place, the right time. Our value proposition was not only the compassionate care that we strive to provide to the patients, but we also provided a cost-effective method for those pharmacies and hospital organizations. So I remember starting out seeing patients myself, calling nurses, training them myself, and I soon realized that if I was to continue doing that, I would not be able to fully fulfill that mission I had set in place to help as many patients and as many nurses as possible. Our goal was to be a community-based business. By growing a concentrated team of nurses within just a few states, that really allowed us to be able to provide timely care to the patients in need at that time. A lot of the other competitors, they would charge per hour for nurse drive time, and they would send a nurse 2-3 hours one way just to see a patient, then pass that burden on to the pharmacy. Essentially, instead of requiring a nurse to drive somewhere far, we would give them the freedom and opportunity to really choose when they want to work. When we went into our first house, I would say many would have just turned back around and shut the door because it was definitely a fixer-upper. Quickly, through nursing school, that's when I started taking down walls and, putting the house back together. And of course, when COVID came, the market for housing drastically increased. So the house that we bought for $140,000, we ended up selling that in September of 2020 for $310,000, and we walked away with $175,000 cash. That allowed me to use that as the working capital to really grow the business. I would get daily and weekly calls from private equity wanting to acquire my company for $1 million, a couple million. And it wasn't until where really the right buyer came, and I knew that the nurses would be paid and rewarded more than what they were at that time from a corporation coming in, as well as the patients, really being able to fulfill that mission and grow that vision and mission at a much larger scale and much faster. It wasn't until September of 2024, I fully resigned from that company. And I remember that week, my wife surprised me that we were expecting our fourth. A great surprise starting my so-called early retirement. So this is definitely a family sabbatical, and I hope that this lasts indefinitely. I look forward to my kids coming home to school every single day. We like to play Mario Kart, just being able to go in our backyard. We have a pool. It's really amazing living on the bay, just being able to see the dolphins come up to your dock and fish when you feel like it. You can take the boat out. The most important part of financial freedom is being able to give freely. So I believe money I'm just managing. It's not necessarily mine. And that's where I really shifted my investment strategies to other small businesses, angel investments, and now even praying about possibly starting another company at some point in the future. I realized that 8 figures, it can either last generationally or it can disappear really fast through bad investments and lifestyle creep for sure. I do foresee always having the freedom to take a day off and spend with family and just really trying to reflect on this time that I have and be as present and available for my family as possible. And it's really great getting to see them grow.
In my early 30s, I came to the realization that I just could not spend the rest of my life sitting in front of a computer, working 10 to 12 hours a day, writing computer code or fixing problems. I just couldn't do that. I knew I needed a change. I'm Steve and I'm 39.
And I'm Courtney and I'm 36.
And we retired in our mid-30s with $870,000.
And live a little bit outside of Tucson, Arizona. What's nice is that our day-to-day lives both have structure, but they don't have to. Because we don't have full-time jobs, we can choose to do things on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or whenever.
Early retirement for me isn't about just not working, it's about freedom. The freedom to design your day to do whatever you want during the day. So for me, that means getting up around 6 a.m. Maybe I work out for a couple of hours. I mess around on the computer for a while, do email, social media, that kind of thing. We go out and take walks with the dogs at about 10 a.m. The freedom is a complete life-changing event. My wife, Courtney, has always been way more of a saver than I was. Before we got married, I had the house in the suburbs. I had a supercharged Corvette convertible. I had a brand new Cadillac CTS. I had a Yamaha R1 sport bike. I had all the toys. I spent a lot of money.
We figured out we needed to save between $800,000 and $900,000 as long as we kept our lifestyle pretty minimal and did some big changes like moved into our Airstream and were able to keep our monthly expenses down to a minimum. It also included more normal things like cutting our restaurant budget way down. I think at one point we're down to, at max, $50 a month combined for anything outside of the house. We tracked all of our groceries, we got rid of all of our subscriptions that we weren't actually using. We decided that we wanted early retirement more than we wanted some of the nicer things in life that other people might want to spend money on. So for us, the trade-off was worth it. So we maxed out both of our retirement accounts. We also saved more money than that. So at one point we were saving 70% of our combined income, so all of my income and some of Steve's. And that was going into our 401ks and Roth IRAs, but also into a brokerage account and a savings account.
As a married couple, we have a combined checking account as well as savings account. We keep everything together. That makes it simple for us. So we talk about every single purchase. We agree on everything that we spend money on, and it's very easy. Usually, Courtney is the one who is managing the day-to-day, and I use that term loosely because there's just not that much to manage. We have a grand total of $0 in debt.
Yes.
So that includes our groceries, our restaurants, and also one of the most important things in our day, happy hour.
Our happy hours. Yeah. We enjoy those. We will go to a grocery store about 45 minutes away once every week and a half or so for a normal shop. We also get veggies from our community farm through a CSA program, a community-sponsored agricultural program, so that's once a week. And then we'll do our big bulk buys at like Costco in Tucson. And then for dental, we live very close to the Mexican border, and cleanings across the border in Mexico tend to be about $25, so not too bad. Day to day, we don't actually spend that much time on our general finances, but maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day, a total of about an hour a week, will be spent looking at everything and making sure everything is still going the way we want it to, and we're not gonna run out of money in any of our accounts. So we take a look at what our net worth is currently, and 4% of that or less is kind of our budget for the year. So if we're having a good year and we're making money, we can be a little bit more flexible with our lifestyle. And then if we're in a down market, we will really cut back. Our rule of thumb when it comes to when we actually sell our investments and take money out is we only do it in an up market if we can help it, which is why we have that savings account there. And we'll we'll sell stock to get money in an up market if one, we need to replenish our savings, or two, we have a big purchase that we're planning to make in the near future.
We were in a little mini but sharp recession. And my friends and some of my family were begging me to sell to get out of the market because everything is going to crash. But for us, we did not do that. We did not sell a single share of stock during the economic downturn. And since then, we have recovered about 150%. So that's $250,000, $300,000 since April of last year. So we are now in a better position than we were before, precisely because we did not try to time the market. It was my first representation of freedom after work. We got to live in here and travel the country for a living. That was awesome.
We would be traveling sometimes multiple days a week and did an entire trip from our home state of Arizona all the way out east to New York, up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and all the way back down. Working the little jobs we do or whatever from the road, we could really be wherever we wanted to be.
We call our house the off-grid recession-proof house for just that reason. Almost no expenses. We can live here nearly as cheaply as we need to. We have no power running to the house. We have solar only. So that was a prepayment essentially, but we have no monthly payments there. We don't have to pay for water because we use water catchment. We don't have to pay for sewer because we have septic on site. And that was really attractive to us as we were trying to settle down from full-time Airstream, so full-time mobile life. Where do we go? How do we keep our expenses down so we can stay early retired? And choosing a very minimal lifestyle in a house with almost no expenses, that was a very attractive proposition for us. Despite the salary of a full-time job, I really don't miss much about that lifestyle. For me, early retirement is definitely worth it. To handle the pressure of saving a lot to retire early, you have to be okay with making some sacrifices, but yet your life can't feel like a sacrifice.
If you think about it as what you're gaining, like if you have that vision of the future, we used to take a walk every night with our dogs in Tucson and discuss like where we were at and how things were going and what we could see our future being like and traveling in the Airstream. And having that like end goal and talking about it and keeping it in mind really made it so that it didn't actually feel like we were sacrificing.